Good evening. The announcement by the central bank that inflation would hit 5.2% in the month of May met an already anxious Ugandan public that had just witnessed a dramatic rise in fuel and commodity prices. Squeezed into an already tight economic environment, many Ugandans have looked on almost helplessly at the government response to the rising prices. The Minister of Finance has promised no intervention, citing that the free market philosophy will tame rising prices. It now falls into the hands of Uganda's opposition to draw up a different strategy of dealing with the high commodity prices. What is in the opposition's toolkit of policy to tame the rising prices? Tonight, on the eve of the presidential address on rising prices, on the spot is Mathias Mpuuga, the leader of Uganda's opposition in Parliament. Leader of Uganda's opposition, the leader of opposition in Parliament, the Honorable Mathias Mpuuga, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for having honored our invitation.
Thank you, Patrick, for having me this evening.
So it was an honor for us to host you on the show like this.
Very
Ugandans
humbling.
are hurting. We have had to dig deeper in our pockets to provide even basic needs. Commodity prices are skyrocketing. Inflation is up. How do you read the situation that we are in right now, and what could be the way out of it?
You know, Patrick, this is a big question, and we can discuss it until the chickens are home. But the long and short of this is that this should have been anticipated by any Ugandan whose eyes, mind, and body looks into the issues around us with perspective. Otherwise, if you do not look at them with imagination and perspective, you probably believe we are facing a shock. Because the question of the day is that what have we been doing over the last 5 years for this not to happen? Because if this must not happen in our midst, probably we must have been doing something right over the last 5 or so years. And therefore, regard this as a huge shock. Just look at our investment priorities over the last 5 years. That's in the medium term. And see whether they were focused on making this not happen. Just try to open up the budget and look at what would really be the major economic sectors and how much investment we have made of them. Talk about agriculture, talk about what passes for industry, talk about the sectors that really must buttress the economy in the medium and long term. Education. What has been our focus on education? What has been our focus on infrastructure? These are the hedging sectors. If you're going to try and hedge the economy against short-term and long-term shocks. Secondly, we probably do a lot of planning on paper. You may want to appreciate, and I have a lot of real belief and trust in Uganda's economists that do the planning, especially at NPA. They really invested a lot of time in giving the perspectives. But then you ask yourself, then the politicians who really have the final say on the priorities in the short term and the long term, have they been invested in reforms or in adjustments?
What?
Because I'm talking about things that you really must know, because you pricked me to speak this language. Let me speak it. Because you want me to talk about the price of cassava. That's in the immediacy, but I want you viewers, because these are sophisticated viewers, to understand that actually we are not facing an accident. We are in the real output. We are harvesting the works of the last so many years. As long as you have been investing in consumption, we are doing the right harvest. You harvest this. Take an example. We're talking prices of basic consumer goods, prices of oil that has a ripple effect to all economic sectors. Have we invested before we extract and produce our own and filter our own oil and gas? Have we been investing in reserves? How would we manage our daily requirements of gas?
So
for us to be able to hedge against
what
these
do you
challenges.
Make of the explanation of government about the reasons they give on why we are here, considering that the world has faced a pandemic and there's a war in Eastern Europe, and yes, many countries are hurting like we are, that there is even imported inflation. So what do you make of this?
You see, the government is really giving the perfect excuse for a lazy man. You know, because it rained, I came late. I saw the rain. But that's the lousiest excuse. Rain is no excuse for being late.
You do not believe at all, Honorable Mpuga, that the pandemic effect has a cause to this? That the war in Ukraine has a cause to this?
Patrick,
among other factors? You don't believe that there's a ramification?
You want me to believe with dogmatic acceptance that what the government is preaching to the world is must be believed and consumed with dogmatic belief that you know, and then we say, Amen?
No, I just want to make you explain your own explanation. I'm only pointing out, sir, events that are beyond, because as we speak right now, there is an inflation, the highest inflation in 40 years in the United States.
Patrick,
the Kenyans are hurting too.
Do not mislead.
The Rwandese are hurting too. I just want to know, Honorable Mpuga, whether that has no relation, sir.
Do not mislead your audience. They do not subscribe to taxes in Rwanda or Kenya. They do not pay planners in Kenya. They pay for planners in Uganda. Let's begin with the basics. All of us have been through COVID, and the entire world economic systems have been really unraveled. What did we do with the money we borrowed in billions to offer relief to the economy? Part of the money, let's look at these two critical sectors, the monetary and physical areas. When we received money we borrowed from the IMF in billions, to wit $1 billion as part of the package, we got to try and hedge the economy and buttress and lift the economy, provide the necessary warmth to the private sector, to the micro enterprises. What did you do with the money? The Auditor General, as part of what he's provided to Parliament, is an indictment that this money was actually invested in non-productive areas. So you've been facing COVID and the economy is locked down, and you get some money to try and really warm up the economy, and you invest in consumption. The same sectors that were taking money in the normal times, again, were given money for consumption when we needed money to really provide a start for the economy, and we failed.
The job of appropriation falls right in the docket of Parliament.
That's what I'm saying.
So why did you put money there as Parliament?
You want to listen to me, or you want to answer yourself? I am saying we had this exchange in Parliament, and we disagreed. In fact, we warned. Our apocalypse has come to really to fruition. We warned that we are putting money in areas that are not going to really give the economy the lift that it deserves. We warned and even advised on how to really use the physical tools to try and support the economy, support the small business people by offering tax relief. We advised on the nature of tax regime that will be erected on petroleum in the interim. to try and give cover to the economy? Because, Patrick, we are net importers. And when you are a net importer, there are things you do not do as a country. When you behave like an exporter, yet you're a net importer, you get the kind of problems we are in. We haven't invested in production. The kind of inflation we are facing, you probably need to know whether it is demand pull or cost push. It's more of cost push. The demand hasn't changed because we do not hedge the costs. You know, the prices inevitably, when the cost function is eventually looked at by the producers, we must have these prices. The people with the final say on what must be done failed this country. And the one was rushing at press conferences to offer lousy explanations. And for me, I hesitate. I am saying we are harvesting, and this is now the transactional cost of keeping a tidy regime that is investing more in regime survival than on keeping the country going.
So, as a leader of opposition, what would be your prescription for the ailment we face as a country?
It's not a Panadol. The question would be, you need to understand, and if you're going to offer the kind of solutions that can really be enduring, you need to understand we have short-term problems we need to fix. And when you're facing a short-term disequilibrium in the economy, you go for adjustments. One of the major adjustments we advised to be invoked is the physical side of the economy, the taxes. You want to boost production. And the productive, resources are very expensive. Rejig the tax regime to motivate production.
By lowering the taxes or removing them?
Exactly. Lower. You may not remove entirely because you need resources to try and keep the economy going.
Uganda Revenue Authority is struggling even to raise revenue.
That is the point.
So
because
if you lower the more...
No, Patrick, look, depending on if you want to collect taxes by looking at economies of scale, by collecting so much from so many, or so much from so few, and therefore raise the premium. I go for collecting so much from so many by lowering it. Same result, compliance will be very high, the cost of collection will be lower. So URA is struggling.
You realize that
No, Patrick, first listen, we're going to mix up this.
I'm not mixing them because...
I said there are two approaches. You have the short term, where I wanted to go for reforms, for adjustments in the tax regime, but also in the priorities of government. We have been discussing the budget and the tax bills the entire week. And probably tomorrow, Parliament will supply. There's a problem. Pay attention to what my shadow minister will produce tomorrow in Parliament as the minority report to the budget. We are singling out sectors that have been denied resources, and instead so much has been invested in consumption. What would really bring this economy and give some warmth are unfunded priorities, and the consumption is going up. That's unserious. So in the short term, can we make some adjustments to our consumptive habits and invest in production? Then some of the challenges now that are plagued this economy require reforms to prepare for the long term. What kind of reforms, for example, do we need to prepare for a country that's becoming an oil economy? What do you want to do? You know what happens in most LDCs where oil has been prioritized and agriculture abandoned. At this stage, you would have expected planners to be focusing on reforming agriculture so that you can hedge a very fragile oil regime, which you people are preparing for. I saw people in Kolo jubilating about FID, the final investment decision. Go and look at the budget and see whether that is speaking.
Why is it that you have your biggest part of the population engaged in agriculture, but providing little to the GDP?
Are you asking that to me or the Minister of Finance?
I mean,
of this government?
you're actually a lead as well, because
I have actually offered my option. Do you follow the options I give? Do you follow?
We do.
Go to my website, The Alternative Government, and read. Ask them when they come here that why don't you follow the options given by the opposition? You don't have to go to the moon to implement them. They are simple. And actually they can offer relief.
So you've talked about taxes maybe reducing to the very many so that money can come in the tax.
It's not just actually reducing. You see, if we had enough time, I would have explained. Part of the problem is that the tax regime is discriminative. We have a lot of runaway exemptions. And then we have a concentration on the small businesses to hedge actually the big ones. Part of the advisory I've offered is to review the exemption regime. Yesterday we had a huge debate in the House about the tax exemption on Bujagari, the Bujagari power project, that had actually asked for a 5-year extension, yet they're making a kill every year by profiteering out of regime negligence. I actually think there's a lot of connivance in that project. There are so many projects like Bujagari that have been, and so many businesses that have been given tax exemptions, yet in actual sense, they're not adding to the long-term, requirements of the economy, but they're adding to the lining up of the pockets of individuals, and then the private small enterprises that offer employment to the citizens have been overtaxed. And you see, part of the need is when you're facing this kind of distribution, you must be worried about keeping jobs. You must be worried about creating jobs. When you invest, when the bulk of your budget is consumptive, then you have made the biggest announcement that there are no jobs in the next year. And when you are raising taxes on micro and medium enterprises, you're actually telling them to actually reduce employment, to tell people to go home. So then you know that our planning is faulty. So these are the kind of things that must be able. You see, when you look at the economies that have survived the oscillations, the serious business, COVID and other oscillations and depressions, they have hedged their economies by investing in even the small economies in the productive sectors. Ask yourself as we speak, what is Uganda's growth center or growth pole? What is Uganda's lead sector? I heard the president sometimes say it is construction. You have put money to construction in the Congo. When the road is in Chanamukaka and Bukoma Nsimbi and Reng, where the bulk of your coffee comes from, are non-existent. And you expect that coffee to be given for a song to a foreign investor. So what is the focus?
So tomorrow, the president will be addressing the nation on issues of commodity prices. And right now, I'm told he's actually watching and listening to you. And there, camera one is your camera. What would you want to tell him?
The president?
What do you want? What would you want in that address to tell Ugandans?
First of all, to apologize to Ugandans that he's been negligent in focusing on what matters. It's the reason why young people have no promise that there will be jobs tomorrow. Next week or thereabout, most of the public universities are going to start graduations. And I can tell you, those younger people are graduating to descend into misery. And General Museveni has had the benefit of being at the helm of the state close to 40 years. And for me, he's leading a scattered country without focus. And we have invested a lot of energy and time in this and that and nothing. If you evaluate, for example, the economics in the times of Joash Banja Nkanji, may the Lord rest him, migrate to the economics of Professor Suruma, now into the economics of the non-existent economics of Kasaija. I think Kasaija is witchcraft. You cannot even call it economics. Where is the focus of this country? What are we doing? So are we for creating jobs? Are we for enlarging enterprise that jobs are created by accident? Are we for infrastructure? Are we for education? Is our education focused? Are we for a healthy nation? Is our health system functional? Are we for politics? What are we for? Are we for security? What are we for?
For the last 10 years, you've been putting much more money into infrastructure. And the second thing was debt servicing.
So do you want
when
to...
when I look at the budget, I see the biggest chunk going to infrastructure, and I'm thinking maybe infrastructure is what you have chosen. But
it would be a very smart idea to invest in infrastructure. But my sense again is that the infrastructure has been politically driven but not economically motivated, which is why there's so many productive areas of this country that have held this country together economically and are grossly lacking infrastructure. We have had the touting of the oil roads over the last 15 years or thereabout. Where are the coffee roads? Where are the tea roads? Where are the, the cotton roads in this country? So the focus has been here and there, nowhere. And it's because largely, I think at some stage, General Museveni lost his focus on the economy and concentrated on his existential threats as a politician and as the helm, as an individual, at the helm of the country. And now that paid all efforts. The economics remained on paper. And I do not know, maybe around him they are no longer courageous people. I am sure even people around him watch him when he's making these speeches, and they look down their tables and either sneer at him or laugh at him. They lack the courage to tell him that, look, Mr. President, this is not working.
Honorable Mpuga, you as Parliament, you support his priorities, you appropriate the funds. Are you telling us that Parliament is completely helpless to change the course of this nation by using the powers available to them?
Have you been in exile, Patrick? I know you're a very smart guy, and you have the best appreciation of the structure.
I know you're now softening the blow.
And working in the House of Parliament.
but really, because...
Patrick, let me say this. It's been part of the problem that has bedeviled this country and its body politic, is that increasingly Parliament has been drained of the much required courage from members of Parliament to stand up to the executive and put things right. Over time, because politics has become transactional, we have missed the caliber politician that can summon courage to stand up to the executive and say, hey, you won't get this. This of our dead bodies.
When there was an opportunity for you to elect leaders of Parliament, I'm talking about the Speaker and Deputy Speaker, in the first round, it's unfortunate that we lost the Speaker of Parliament, then Jacob Oulanyah. In the first round, the opposition actually presented another formidable candidate in the name of the Honorable Ssemujju Nganda. But guess what? The man only got 15 votes. In fact, the two candidates, both NRM, got overwhelming votes, including from the opposition. So if you are talking about courage, courage also should start from within your own quarters.
So, Patrick, do you see me with 10 eyes and 4 legs?
Meaning what?
No, I'm just telling you that, you see, I always tell people that, you see, members of Parliament, from wherever they come from, reflect the aspirations, the desires, and the frustrations of the people that voted them.
Wasn't that mind-boggling, Honorable Mpuga, that
allow me to say this, Patrick.
Let me state it again. Wasn't it mind-boggling that you have a formidable candidate in the opposition, but he gets minimal votes. And all the members of the opposition divided their votes to the two NRM candidates.
But was it the
and
first
we
time?
come back, and you come back and say there's a problem with the parliament. There's also a problem.
Was it the first time that happened in Parliament?
Whether it happened the second and third,
that's what I'm telling you.
It's a scar on the conscience of the opposition.
Certainly, you are driving me into...
No, I'm not going there.
No. You're taking me into a petty discussion.
No, it isn't.
Let's up the conversation about whatever has gone wrong about our politics. And that's what I was saying, that these members of parliament, friends and colleagues, with respect, they mirror the aspirations, desires, and frustrations of their voters. So the voters offered the country those members of parliament. The buck stops with them. The buck does not stop with the head of the opposition. The head of the opposition gives direction to the team. He does not drag the members to cast a vote. These are hurdlers. I don't herd them like cattle. Secondly, you need to understand, and I think we discussed this, Patrick, that that particular vote for speaker had all the attendant issues that had gone wrong with our politics. It was a vote after a very divisive, violent national election. The opposition was not together. This is not in doubt. At the time we convened to vote for a speaker, the opposition too had gone through an acrimonious process, and there were barbs and exchanges against each other, and that never helped matters at the time. So for me, it was not a shock. Did it make a difference for you that the by-election probably cast a different picture and the same people were voting in the same environment, that it now came out to be a little different? Make no mistake, even then we had challenges internally. Some members of the opposition openly campaigned for the NRM candidates and respected their choice. Should we cast them in the sea?
Of course not. What you should accept,
but you need to understand.
What you should accept, that what is happening there is not necessarily a tyrant of numbers. Perhaps they have been able to persuade some of your colleagues.
No, Patrick.
To take the line. Yeah, because
the initial conversation was about the economy.
It is, and you know how, and you should appreciate how I descended into this.
Yeah. That's
because you introduced it.
No. That's what I'm saying. That the kind of politicians that have failed this country in building its economy began by failing to manage the politics. It's always about the politics stupid. If the politics was right, the economics would be easier to manage. It all begins from the fact that we are trying to discuss politics in a pseudo-democracy.
Do you feel frustrated that the situation is as it is, and yet you think the government and those who are in charge of the affairs are goofing every day, and yet you can do nothing? You feel that sense of frustration?
I am not about to be frustrated, because it is the motivation of those at the helm that we get frustrated. But we, unfortunately for them, we are not about to get frustrated, because in their failings lies a huge opportunity for us. We just need to put a few things right, and I know we shall be on top of the game. There's a lot of chance in the way this country is structured to turn tables in the coming month or weeks. We have discussed hitherto the structure of our population, the changing conversation about national politics over the last probably 3-4 years, and the fact that the ruling group is clueless on what to do next. And when you see the kind of actions that they have decided to undertake out of their own frustration, actually my sense is that they are dispirited. Clearly there's a chance, and we need to give ourselves that chance and partake of it and make a difference.
Where do you place the global and regional challenges that we face to impact on our situation now? Do you think they have no connection at all?
I'm not blind to these realities. But when you are aware of what is outside your walls, you hedge them. I'm aware, if your way is going to rain, then you must take care of your roof. I am alive to the regional and international socioeconomic challenges to which we are a part. But you see, like I said earlier,
the economies are inextricably linked.
Certainly they are. But there are things that are within our capacity to manage. If we are indebted the way we are, I would not have to hire somebody from Kenya to come and manage my priorities in borrowing. Certain things that are affecting us are self-inflicted. Somebody at Finance and Bank of Uganda is either conniving or sleeping on duty or creaming off the challenges. You know, Patrick, in these kind of challenges, some people thrive because then they have something to real, you know, when you borrow, they're in business. When you make these fake agreements with whoever you make them with, for them it's, you know, a business day. So we need to act smarter because the challenges around us, nobody's going to sympathize with us. That because we slept on the job, therefore, we should go and hide ourselves somewhere in Kigali or in Nairobi or in Dar es Salaam. This is Uganda. We must plan for Uganda. We must be alive to the challenges, but also the huge opportunities that we have as a country to take advantage of the global challenges to survive. So while other people are making a kill out of oil, and you're not an oil exporter, so what are you saying to the oil exporter?
Hold on to your point, Honorable Mathias Mpuga, because you're going to take a break and we shall come back to drill deep into this issue of the state of our economy. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is Honorable Mathias Mpuga, the leader of opposition in Parliament. I've heard some people murmur that while Ugandans are hurting, they expected you to come out, maybe address a press conference, give us the alternative ideas that you think Uganda should have, or even maybe just like Dr. Kizza Besigye, lead a protest on the streets of Kampala. I'm not calling for protest, but lead a protest on the streets of Kampala so that you can express yourself. There seems to be people who think, well, the elite in the opposition are comfortable where they are, and yet during the campaign you are using this word called Tulimo struggle. But as if in them the struggle has almost been abandoned. Well, how do you respond?
Patrick, if addressing press conferences, we probably have even run out of batteries. We have addressed as many. The last was addressed by the Shadow Minister for Finance. In fact, before even the government came out, we volunteered to explain to the masses the underlying causes of the escalating commodity prices. We did that with that utmost clarity, and we even demanded that government does something about it. And there was no denial from government that what we said was wrong. In fact, they only came out to parrot the same and then offered no solution. Secondly, what Dr. Kizza Besigye is doing and others are the duties of a citizen. And if you expect Dr. Besigye to wake up and demonstrate on behalf of Patrick, you're abdicating your personal duty. Just join him. You don't have to wait for me. The duties of a citizen are that and more. He's doing his duty as a citizen. So when he came out and made a clarion call for people to wake up and join him, he's doing his duty. And nobody should believe that in their discomfort, whatever they are, they can look at him in admiration and accuse others of not joining him when they have not joined him themselves. So every citizen must feel obligated to join him and others.
Are you alive to the fact that some people actually expected you to do more or less the same. You know, a protest, expressing your displeasure,
So
your discomfort.
when was the date and when did it end? Did it have a date of beginning and ending? We do not act with cram work, Patrick. If others have started on the day of their choice to do what they have done, I'll do something else. It's no cram work. All I'm saying is that if citizens feel that they must express their displeasure, they should do so in whatever they can do, in whichever way they think they can do it. It means closing your kiosk. Do it. If you're so scared of being on the street, like Doctor has done, close your kiosk, close your shop, close your supermarket to actually show that you are actually concerned. So the little things that we can do are there. They should not be done by politicians alone. Everybody can do something. And I don't want to be here and deceive the nation that it's the politician that should do it on their behalf. Everybody must be part of this. And that's the message the doctor was sending out. Patrick and the others should do the same. They should not be waiting for a man from Masaka to do it on their behalf. The people of Masaka and their leaders will do their part, like they have done before. The question of the day, they have been doing it. So are you, the rest of the citizenry, admiring? On the other day, you invited us here and accused us of sabotaging the economy. I'm not saying you. On another day, so what are the citizens doing? Every citizen must rise and actually
but building a vibrant citizenry would require some kind of leadership that will come from people like you.
That's what we've been doing over time, and we continue to do it. And I don't want to discourage.
So why do we see less civic engagement now?
Of course we can understand where this is coming from, Patrick. The citizenry has been brutalized over the years. And even today I was watching as Doctor was leaving home, and the kind of involvement that was probably 5-7 years ago has not been as the same. There's something wrong with the citizens. Probably they need to really another further awakening. Probably the feeling that what they've been doing over time is not working, then they do something else. But the issue is everyone must get involved. Do what you can, start from where you are. Don't wait for your neighbor to do it on your behalf. Nobody's going to wake up and do it for you when you feel hurt. Do the simplest at your disposal. Summon something within your energy and ability and do it. It's that collective, that additive that will make the difference.
You seem now to be, you know, like the food soldiers, they can do their thing. But at the beginning, if I remember watching you closely, your colleagues in the entire NUP, there was that one common voice of the struggleists. And everybody will be talking to them struggle, and they're struggling. But now it appears there's them and there's you. I mean, them, my friends, like people like Eddie Mutwe, people like Waiswa Mufumbira, people like Dr. Honorable Zake, who seem to have a certain brand of politics, of dealing with the politics, and you also who are taking it in a different way. Is there some kind of a split?
Is that the way you
in how you approach things?
Is that the way you see it too, or you speculate?
Well, when I listen to Mufumbiro and I listen to the Honorable Zake and listen to people like Eddie Mutwe, I see some kind of vibrancy than I see it on the top. And so I'm wondering how. Yet at the beginning,
were you interviewing them on the spot on the subject we are discussing?
No. But clearly there's a difference.
Certainly there's a dichotomy and depending on the kind of issues being handled and on what platform. That certainly is the issue. And when you're a leader, for example,
are you not drifting apart?
No, just listen to me. How you should listen. When you're a leader, because leadership cascades, you are assigned to undertake duty at different levels and stages. And depending on the platform, you communicate differently, you know? And that's how it works. And the time that you're referring to, or you refer to, there was a time for that electoral cycle when everyone was involved, you know, and the movement was in the same direction. When the election cycle subsided and we took another turn to try and take the struggle in a different direction, the intonation, the activities, the team leaders, of course, changed. And we're doing work at different levels. When you go at the party headquarters and see what the secretariat is doing and planning to do, it's different from when you come to the Lopez office to see what is planning for Parliament. They can't be the same. Unless one doesn't understand how things play out.
And what you're planning for Parliament,
and they're not contradictory.
Your office is big in this country, and actually you have, I'm told, is even a team of researchers working with you to understand the nature of our economy and what is happening. So in the meantime, in the immediate term, what should we do? Budget is almost going to be passed now, and I'm sure the priorities are not like how you wanted them. But in the short term, what can we be doing?
Of course, I should really inform viewers and citizens there that things will only get worse before they get better. That should be properly understood.
We should prepare to tighten our belts?
Certainly, they will get worse before they get better. I have seen the projections for growth this financial year to range between 4 to 6%. For that to happen, probably will be witchcraft. You see, you can only grow to those levels when you have made the right choices for your resources. The resource envelope is scattered. URA is planning to collect probably about 24, 25 trillion in domestic revenue, and probably 8 trillion is for debt servicing and attendant issues management, and you can only probably remain with about 12 or so.
And yet your recurrent expenditure is 18 trillion.
Certainly. So the way things are, you don't even have enough money to pay debt, to service debt, and pay salaries. So if you do not properly find the right sources of borrowing, you have the economy on its knees.
So we're actually going to borrow to pay salaries.
Inevitably. Today we were discussing a supplementary, the second supplementary Schedule 2, and part of it had salary arrears, and a portion of it was to be borrowed. The quarrel we had on the floor with the minister today was that even the source of the borrowing was not properly disclosed. So when you tell me you anticipate growth between 4 to 6% per annum, then I have a problem with my economics, because I look at the priorities in the budget. So where are you going to get the money? The much touted parish model is partly an unfunded priority. So, and when you tell me that's a turnkey, public investment of sorts.
So if we invested in agriculture, because that's where we have competitive and comparative advantage in the region, with the poor infrastructure on the continent and less intra-African trade, shall we be focusing on the markets in Asia and Europe? Are we going to be into agro-processing? Because how do we turn around agriculture so that we can produce goods of quality and, for example, take them to Algeria or Nigeria? How do we trade, considering that there's less intra-African trade today? And also knowing that our other African countries probably are going to be producing the same.
Patrick, the conversation on agriculture and how to turn it around is a huge conversation. Initially, you need to overcome the kind of agriculture that is dependent on nature. Whereas nature was lavish before we really brought down our environment, it's no longer possible to depend on nature to farm or undertake any agricultural enterprise. Secondly, some of the activities to be undertaken in agriculture require reform in the way agriculture is financed, access to agricultural credit. In our alternative to the parish model, we offered how a reactivation of an agricultural bank or a cooperative bank can turn around agriculture, where farmers or investors in agricultural enterprise value addition can access credit for long-term investment, not this, short-term borrowing. You borrow today and start paying tomorrow. We offered the kind of investments in irrigation, because we are very lucky that we are a country where probably 99.9% of water is fresh water. And therefore, an undertaking properly thought through with serious imagination can make us a productive country. And you see, even when you want to add value, in some of the agricultural products, you don't produce enough for it to make business sense to process. And I can assure you, we have no shortage of market in the region, in Africa, in Europe and the Americas, as long as there is deliberate investment. We undertake public investments undertaken initially to be the ones leading, from which private people will look at. The government has to invest. I'm a believer in a mixed system. Government cannot divest itself entirely from being the leader in investment. We lately borrowed from China. I understand we even went to the Koreas. In their governments invest.
It's doing business.
They do business to be able to fast track the creation of jobs, the generation of skills.
How many of the leaders we have in cabinet are business people, so that we can handle Uganda like Uganda Incorporated?
You ask the question, the appointing authority. I don't know, I fish them. I only see people in parliament, largely clueless on so many things. They're the ones we have at the moment. And it's up to Ugandans to throw this lot out and we begin anew. They have had their trials and errors. The trial and error cannot be for 35 years. We need to make a turn, and a U-turn, a 360 degrees turn, to really think. The entire model of this country has to be rethought differently.
This is for the first time that inflation is actually going to 5.2. Do you give them credit that for quite some time they had managed to manage inflation? You should give them some credit.
Patrick, depending on how you follow the key inflation indicators, because whether talking about underlying or headline inflation has been with us almost in closer figures. The only difference is that production in some key sectors plummeted. Otherwise, we have lived with inflation. If you want to understand that we have actually had it worse, at the time of changing our currency, how many zeros did we drop? And what was the cost of sugar at the time we changed the currency? And by how many times has it changed? So you go for what we call the basic basket. The basic basket comprising of basic consumer goods, and compute by how many times their prices have changed for the last 35 years. Then you'll be able to understand the kind of inflation Ugandans have stomached for 35 years. So the cram work about they have managed it. They have not managed it. They have failed. So they dropped 3 zeros at the exchange.
Yeah, that well.
So
that
how much has changed then?
That could have been like 30 years
So what
back.
happened? So for 30 years, have the Americans made a $1,000 note? in the same time. So there's a problem with the way this economy has been managed over the years. Actually, it's not management, they're manipulating, and there's a limit to manipulation. Planning is deliberate. You cannot manage the economy like a WhatsApp group. You really need to think through.
So you,
enduring
at one
investments
point
that are
you
going to
say, at one
buttress.
point you say we have very smart Ugandans working, very smart economists working at the National Planning Authority, maybe in the Ministry of Finance. So the problem really lies with the people taking decision, the politics.
Certainly, certainly. Everything is gone wrong with the politics. That's why I talked about that we are harvesting the transactional cost of keeping in government a tired group. When a group gets tired, they become gatherers and they don't care. And when leaders become gatherers, they subject citizens to this kind of suffering. The thinking ceases, the eating grows.
Do you envisage a scenario of a desperate population trying to push back?
Your apocalypse is as good as mine, and probably a matter of time. And there's an amount of force that can stop it when it eventually happens, because we're talking about the population failing to access the basic basket. When you look at the figures of the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, when you look at how the basic basket is shrinking because of the diminishing means to access it, with time, this is becoming unbearable. And it will not shock me if eventually the population says, well, we want both the cassava and the bread, including meat on it. We want the bread and the butter. So this will inevitably happen. And I know, and this is part of the problem, instead of investing in making this not happen by way of creating options, we're investing in forcing it not to happen by investing in a lot of classifieds. You know what I mean? So the huge budget on the classifieds, so that, you know, before Dr. KB brushes his teeth, somebody is on top of his wall fence to see whether his shoes are on the veranda, his sandals are on the veranda. Politics is stupid. So that's the kind of investment that we are making. And I can tell you, it has a limit.
You have quite an apocalyptic view of Uganda. Eh? Today you spoke like a prophet of doom.
Necessarily not. It's because I have been around for a while, and I take off time to see and understand the actions of my friends and tormentors alike. And I know who is doing what in this country. And I know what they wake up thinking every day. And I hasten to add that it's all false. So we can actually change the direction of this country if the high and mighty rethink their desperate options and climb down their high horses and start speaking about this country, not their households. It is possible, it's feasible. Patrick, make no mistake, even when our resource envelope is that, you know, perforated the way it is, there's still enough to turn around the fortunes of our citizens. It's a question of sitting down and make strong decisions about the choices we are making now. What is lacking is courage. What is lacking is conviction on the part of the leadership that actually this country can be turned around. I can see on their faces and actions the kind of thinking that Fidel Castro had, probably, that I'd better be a king in hell than being a servant in heaven. they're hesitant in sharing the little that is available. They think their comfort and their security lies in patronizing citizenry. That if I have enough, then I will stave off the kind of doom that you...
Hold on to your point, Honorable Matthias Mpuga. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, I'll open the lines. You're going to see the numbers on the screen. Pick your phone and tell us what you think. If you have a question for the Honorable Mpuga, please ask him the question. Or if you can also tell us your own experience of this financial squeeze that all of us are feeling. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is the leader of opposition in Parliament, the Honorable Matthias Mpuga, and we're discussing the state of Uganda's economy because, let's face it, many of us have had to dig deep in our pockets to provide just for basic needs. We're feeling the financial squeeze, and like some people say, we're paying through the nose. Yeah. Today, I was reading what you talked about in Parliament, about the power, the Bujagali Power Dam, and that government is like the majority shareholder, yet it's being treated like a minority shareholder, and that every time taxpayer is losing money. And I'm wondering, why is this expose happening now? And we are culpable as journalists as well, because we should have known this better. Happening now, is coming out now, yet the dam has been around for almost 30 years. I don't get it.
Well, Patrick, this country probably is a country of wonders. And you want to think about who actually negotiated this agreement, where the big shareholder is actually unable to make a decision on anything. And yesterday we were engaged with the ministers to try and come to a kind of settlement, because they came to Parliament requesting for an extension of the tax exemption for another 5 years. Tax exemption on corporate tax. Corporate tax is paid on profit. And they're not saying that they don't make profit. They're just saying, please give us another 5 years to go without paying tax. They're not making profit on their money. They're making profit on money borrowed by the government of Uganda. The taxpayer pays the loans that were used, including the so much that was invested in by the taxpayer at the beginning of the project. Like, what's going on? And when we inquired, a lot is not declared. So we said no, instead they should be investigated. And I'm glad Parliament agreed with us. And that's not the only project in which we are being fleeced. Yesterday, I did ask Parliament that the Ministry of Finance tables before Parliament all agreements in the Attorney General's chambers before Parliament for scrutiny. And I'm glad Parliament agreed with me. We're waiting for them. There should be so many of them. We just unraveled
we're having a hemorrhage of public resources,
yeah,
public funds.
This country is where it is because the political leadership long lost it. The negotiations on behalf of the people are creaming off. People are creaming off these agreements they make on behalf of Ugandans, including the borrowing for financing the budget. And this is where Parliament is indictable. Members of Parliament need to up their game in scrutinizing the borrowings.
Yeah, but the accountability committees of Parliament are under you.
Yes, I'm saying that we need to up the game. The committees that I'm leading in this 11th Parliament have just started their job, and I'm glad they're doing a very good job.
Let's see a few people online what they are saying tonight, Honorable Matthias Mpuga. I have a caller online. You tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, Mugamba Chibaganda Wangabali mu studio abebikibwa. Bapita ambassador for Destinate President wange Kyagulanyi Sentamu. Mujja kusonyiwa okuteesa mu Luganda kubanga ffe abateesa mu Luganda kwe tutugiwuliriza. Naye kyensooka okwebaza omwami oyo yali mu studio, nkwebaza ku babaka bo b'okulembera kuno baabadde kimu. gavumenti yabadde etandise okutagaataga ng'etandise okukwata ku batoni y'emmwanyi naye ababaka b'okulembera abakulemberwa kale pulezidenti waffe Kyagulanyi ne balwana etteeka ne balikuba kyembadde njagala okukugamba muzeeyi mwongeremuko ku maanyi era baleetaleeta ebiteeka mu palamenti mubikube babizeeyo ffe tuli balimi ba mmwanyi luli badde bagala tufuula ng'abasoga babagoba ku mikajjo ne babadondola ne mu mwanyi babadde batandise okukola ki okujja ne mukwatire wamu n'ababaka oli musajja muganda oluweeyo Masaka ebyeteeka ly'emmwanyi ebiteekateeka mu bigobe kwaye Museveni waali atandise okudaaga oba batandise kuzungira ku batoni akwata eno kale ye emmwanyi mwagimukubye nsigadde mbasaba Fadde Senate mwongeremu amaanyi n'ababaka b'okulemberera
Okay, thank you very much. But okay, he makes a point because let me just pick another caller. I have a call online. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, you are on air. What's your name?
My name is.
May I request you to turn down the volume of your TV so that it doesn't bring an echo? Then you shall have a better conversation.
All right, Mr. Kamara. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now, loud and clear.
Well, my name is Edgar Baker.
Okay.
For me, I just want to thank the Honorable Matthias Mpuga for steering the opposition in Parliament quite well.
Okay.
Yeah, I ask him to continue. We are on his back.
Thank you so much, Baker. For you, just wanted to appreciate the works of the Honorable Mpuga. I have another caller online. Tell us your name and where you're calling from, and please make it precise. Hello. Hello. Oh, sorry about that. We seem to have lost the connection to that caller who was getting to us. And well, you know, the issue of coffee. I have another call online. Hello. Hello.
Hey, hello?
Yes, good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Yes, good evening, Patrick. This is Andrew from Kisugu.
Andrew from Kisugu, you're on air. Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, I want to thank the Honorable Matthias Mpuga.
Okay.
Yes, and I also want to call on Ugandans. I think what is happening now is supposed to be a responsibility of each and every South-minded Ugandan.
Okay.
The commodity prices.
Okay.
I will tell you, Patrick, a month ago, Posho used to be 1,200 shillings.
Yeah.
But when you go to the market now, it has doubled. It is 2,400 shillings.
I understand it. That's what I buy.
Yeah.
I eat Posho. Okay.
Yes. So it is upon the responsibility of all Ugandans to wake up and not wait on the leader of opposition and the opposition itself to fight for them.
All right.
We have to have responsibilities as individuals. What do we need for our country, and which role we have to play as a citizen of this country.
All right. I'm sure the Honorable Matthias was preaching to the converted when it comes to you. Thank you so much. You know, the issue of people, of civic engagement, people understanding their responsibility and doing what is right, also putting their leaders to account when necessary, is perhaps what will change Uganda moving forward.
Very, very important, because the tendency is to believe that this country is for politicians. Politicians are not just a few in number, but they're actually too inadequate to be the ones making the final call. People must express their aspirations clearly, and they show that anyone easily and very fast recall, disenfranchise any politician walking away from the path of their desires without having to recourse to anything. And if people must be empowered to know that the final call is on them. Now that we are in Parliament making critical decisions, you now hear people say it's very important to actually elect a serious member of Parliament. I've
seen some appreciation on the fact that how you handled the coffee issue.
Yeah.
That you seem to have been with your colleagues cool, calm and collected and very focused, without necessarily going to a protest or demonstrate, but yet you have been able to make government change its course.
Yeah, when this matter started in my shadow cabinet, because that's where it started, we discussed the pros and cons of what we are going to do, because we knew the underlying players in this whole saga. We said we're going to be meticulous. And I put up a team to petition on this matter. And then we buttressed the team with our technical team, with information, and we made Parliament understand the gist of this issue. And I'm glad the Right Honourable Speaker was courageous to assign it to a committee to investigate it. And for good measure, the committee chaired by NRM was able to summon courage to really offer leadership on the inquest on this subject and report it to Parliament properly.
Why can this approach be used on many other aspects of governance and issues that affect us as a people?
It all depends on so many factors. Some issues are so emotive that actually sometimes reason is lost. And sometimes also depends on the approach that the leadership prefers to deploy on the issues obtaining. And we have to adopt and learn to adopt this, sometimes the stick and carrot approach. And that sometimes in some of these issues over which we stretch each other, there's nobody to defeat. Because the problem that can arise is to imagine that for every issue, there must be a loser. And sometimes they actually, when you look around, there's nobody to defeat, but the country to lose. So when you understand that distinction, you're probably in position to navigate intricate issues to fruition. It was a big success for the House, and for government, it's rethinking the way they're undertaking public duty.
All right, we're almost coming to the end of our discussion tonight. There's a by-election coming up in Omoro. What are your prospects?
Well, I'll be in Omoro over the weekend, probably, and early in the week. But I've been getting daily feedback from the field. My candidate is doing very well. But this afternoon, I received information from him that there have been maneuvers, probably from the usual suspects, trying to disqualify him from the by-election. Allegedly, that he was wrongly nominated, that the signatures, not for any reason or academic or whatever, that the signatures do not tally with whatever there is. A lot of nonsense, a lot of crap. But I'm telling you, we're doing well. My candidate is doing well, and I want to assure the people of Omoro that the vote you'll cast on 26th postures into your aspirations and frustrations. Summon the courage to cast it. I have seen, before I came on this program, on TV, security posturing about who they will allow in Omoro, as if they think Omoro is another country that you need a passport to go there. I want to encourage and invite every citizen who thinks that cultivating a democratic culture should be part and part of our human culture, to find time to interest themselves in every civic activity that is taking place, including Omoro, to go and participate, go and protect the vote. You don't have to be violent. If you have a vote, you don't have to be violent.
All right.
If you have support, simply go and marshal your support. So we shall be there, right there, and great prospects await for NUP.
As NUP, is the dynamism as robust as it was?
More than ever before. You know, think about the fact that hitherto we were barely 2 months when we sounded into a huge national election. We were babies. We hadn't really found our footing. We are a year plus as a party. We made mistakes, we learned from them, we have learned anew, we have unlearned. We shall be better and better.
Will you withstand what is going to be thrown at you for the next 3-4 years?
Well, my shocks are enough to withstand the adversity. I don't think I'll encounter what I've not encountered in my journey. Of course, every day postures something new, but not in terms of shaking my natural, shocks.
It appears the command of the land forces is making its own charm offensive to the people of Uganda. I wonder, you're watching and standing by and let it happen?
Well, I wish him the best in his misplaced endeavors.
What's going to be your concluding remark tonight?
Patrick initiated, thank you. And, you know, the media in shining a light on us leaders does a lot on us to really put our sails in the right direction. And I want to invite the media to even be more interested, especially in the way national resources are shared. The budget is going to be read tomorrow in Parliament, and the media should shine a light on how this resource envelope is distributed across the country. It's very, very imperative. I have heard pronouncements from some of the regime bootlickers to the effect that if you voted the opposition, blah, blah. I was shocked earlier today to read a statement from the NRM Secretary General, my old friend, the Honorable Tadong, speaking from Omoro, saying that if the people of Omoro vote the opposition, they will not get development. Then I was like, for 30 years, Omoro has been at NRM. What development is there? And this was from a man who went to school. I said, was this wasted school fees? So I want to invite the media to be interested in how national resources are shared, on how priorities of this country, and begin asking the tough questions. The last time I saw you host Genome 7 was some years back. Yes. I'm waiting for you to host him again and ask him the kind of questions that you did ask then, ask even more, and probably ask him whether he knows where he is now.
It's a work in progress.
To situate himself.
Believe you me, I'm knocking on the doors every day to get that interview.
Have you been denied one?
I'm knocking on the doors. And I want to thank you so much.
Thank you.
The Leader of Opposition, Mathias Mpuuga. I want to thank you for your time, but most of all, I value your insight.
Thank you.
And for you who has been watching this program, I want to thank you for the privilege of your great company. Good night and God bless Uganda.